Maybe we could start, I think, by just allowing you to tell your story. So you can start wherever you'd like. And
Thank you. Exactly as you mentioned, in the after Soviet Union collapsed, they were stopped helping North Korean regime, and North Korean regime is like run by central government economy. So they decide how much rice you can eat that day per person based on their class. So even though the biggest irony of North Korea is that it was founded the idea of equality, make everybody the same, the communism, and then they called it themselves as a socialist paradise. But they made it into North Koreans into three big categories of classes, and within three categories, they divided 50 subcategories of classes. So it became the most unequal society that you can imagine right now in our human history. I was born in the northern part of North Korea. So during this great famine that was man-made famine by Kim regime, that's where most of North Koreans died in the northern part where I was born. And the people in Pyongyang, in the capital, they were still well fed. So the modern example that I found was actually the Hunger Games. There is a capital and they divide 13 different districts. They make everybody else outside the capital on verge of surviving. So people do not think about what is the meaning of life, what is freedom. All they have to think about is next meal. Like, can I find food to feed my child? And in Pyongyang, they are really well fed and they have every intention to maintain the system and the regime. So that's where I was born in. In the 1993, seeing the dead bodies on the streets was literally everyday thing. I never knew that that was like weird word. And that's what got me the first when I came out. People were saying, like, why there's no revolution in North Korea. And first of all, we don't even know the vocabulary revolution in North Korea. It's a country where they don't teach us about the word love. There's no romantic love in North Korea. I never heard my mom telling me that she loved me. The only word that we know, love, is that written form of the word where we describe our feelings towards the like dear leader, not about to another human. So there's no word for love, no word for human rights, dignity, freedom, and that's why people in North Korea, they don't know they are oppressed, they don't know they are slaved.
you said the information control was so total that you had absolutely no idea what was happening in the outside world. And you believed at that time that despite what you saw around you, that other countries were much worse.
So even here right now in this 21st century, North Koreans do not even know the existence of internet, and we do not even have electricity. So of course in school I never even seen the map of the world. I never even knew. So in school in North Korea, they don't teach me that I'm an Asian. They teach me that I'm a Kim Il Sung race. And North Korean calendar begins not when the Jesus Christ was born, when Kim Il Sung was born. So they cut out entire information, and people literally get executed for watching photo information. And that is a crime to be dead in North Korea. So you do not have a freedom even to travel abroad. It's an entire black hole of information. You don't know outside that cave what's happening. But of course, like the leaders like Kim Jong Un, he went to school in Switzerland. The top elites go out, but the people at the bottom, most of them, never even seen the map of the world, and we don't even know what Africa, other continents, other race, and that was like me.
And you described the conditions that you grew up in. So you're,
Mm.
first of all, what stands out quite remarkably is the degree of hunger.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about what it was like when you were a kid in the 90s in Korea with regards to eating.
So it's North Koreans are on average 3 to 4 inch shorter than South Koreans because of the malnutrition. And I'm like 5'2", but most of North Korean men are shorter than me. So if we are above 410 feet high, you must go to military. So tons of North Korean adult men are around 410, like even below that right now. So this severe malnutrition affects even our brain development. North Korea's average life expectancy is like if somebody lives up to 60, we think they lived a really long life. Like my grandmother who died from almost like malnutrition before her 60, everybody thought, like, oh, she lived long enough to do that. So it is a different planet we are talking about. Being in North Korea, of course, like only way for me to get my proteins were eating, grasshoppers, dragonflies, a lot of insects, tree barks, plants, flowers, and that's how we survive. And most of people die in the spring because that's when there's no like really insects and plants are. And that's where every spring there's most of people dying and majority of people dying that time.
Yes, and you said that for you and for the people around you, spring wasn't a time of hope and renewal, but the
Mm.
absolute worst time of the year.
The
And so
season
maybe
of
you can
death.
explain that.
Yeah. Yeah, so every spring I remember my skin should like cut off from the like vitamin lackness that I would get dizzy, and it's like season of death every spring. The people who couldn't wait until the summer so the plants grow, and that's when like we all know that tons of people gonna die. And I still remember I escaped in the spring in at the March of 2007. One day I had a really bad stomach ache, and my mom took me to the hospital. But in North Korea, of course, there's no electricity, there's no x ray machines, none of that. Literally, a nurse using 1 meter to inject every patient in the hospital. And people don't die from cancer in North Korea, they die from infection and hunger mostly. And the doctor literally told my mom that she has appendix. I think we gotta operate on her like right now in this afternoon. And they do not use anesthesia. It's a very like people don't use anesthesia in North Korea. So they would cut my belly open that afternoon, and I was fainting. And they said, "Oh, she just malnourished. She got an infection. She doesn't have any appendix." But and then they closed me back, and then it literally from our hospital to the bathroom, there were like piles of human bodies piled up. And you see children like chasing the rats, eating just rats, eating human eyes first. And then children catch these rats and they eat and they somehow die from I don't know what it is. Then rats eat the children back. So this cycle of us eating rats and they eat us back is going to continue and continue.
Yeah, and you said that was happening in the hospital. You also mentioned that in that episode that you woke up before the surgery was over because the anesthetic ran out.
Mm. It was yeah, it was not even like actually a full anesthetic. It was more like a dose of I think sleeping pill, like a lot of tons of it. So most of people in North Korea right now, even when they cut their legs open, sewing their bones, they do not give any anesthesia because the it's a free healthcare and regime do not provide anything for the people.
So yeah, you mentioned as well, and so we can talk about your familial situation that in the 1990s, the average
Mm.
wage in Korea was the equivalent of $2 a month.
Mm.
And so $1.90 a day is what the UN regards as the line between poverty, like absolute privation related poverty, and enough to barely subsist on $1.90 a day. And so North Koreans were making as much in a month as the UN allows for poverty in a day. And you describe, um, well, eating virtually nothing. Rice was a luxury. Other forms of food, especially protein, were virtually unheard of, including fruit. And you, in some of the most memorable sections, you described going out into the fields with some other children, and you were about 7 or 8 years old, I guess, at this time, and catching dragonflies and roasting them with a lighter.
Mm.
And that was where you got your protein.
That is, that's, yeah, I mean, I ate tons of grasshoppers. I remember always, even though it was a free education when we go to school, so in North Korea, there's no concept of minor. And there's no concept of I. They don't allow us to use the word I. So even though, like I say, I like food, they say we like food. We like our country. So And in that scenario, when we go to school, they all view us as a revolutionaries. And therefore, even the children, when they go to school, even 8, 7, 9 years old, we all have to work in the manual construction zones. So therefore, children, even when they can afford to go to school, it doesn't really mean much to them go to school. And most of children now in North Korea cannot afford to go to school and stay at home. And that was like my job. When parents go out to find food, children would like clean and bring the drinking water. We don't even have a sewage, and going to mountains and bring a lot of the firewood because we don't have gas or coal or anything. We have to find anything we can find in the nature to cook food. So it's almost like 16th century of lifestyle that we go to the river and we bathe in the summertime, and in the winter we don't bathe. And only a few times we take bath. And that's why I still sometimes cannot believe that this is the same life that I'm living in right now.